thank you for tuning into this video on the unity of the Gospels. That is referring to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Now I was wondering, if we observed a theft and we had 4 witnesses to observe that theft, what would be said that would be unifying and what would said that would be different in each eyewitness account. Here's a quick clip of a guy stealing from a convenience store. Let's watch it.
This man looks like a regular shopper coming in to pick up a few goods at his local convenience store. He's anything but regular. He opens up his blue bag and dives in. He fills his bag with chips, cakes, candy, and soda. And when he's done, he just walks out.
Some people might comment on what is in the store, what is the person wearing, what was stolen. But almost everybody who sees that clip is going to say this person stole something from the store. There would be a unifying agreement of what happened in that event that we just saw. Well, Jesus had 4 people write about him. They're called the 4 Gospels. The first is Matthew, the next is Mark, the next is Luke, and finally John. Well, what about Matthew? Matthew was a tax collector who was called by Jesus. We see his calling in Matthew 9 verse 9, where he comes and follows the Lord Jesus. He's also described as a tax collector in Matthew 10 verse 3. And he's one of the 12 disciples as recorded in Luke chapter 6 verse 15. And he was an eyewitness of Jesus because he was a disciple of Jesus. Next we have Mark. Mark we know very little about. We know that he was a follower of Jesus and was an eyewitness. And it is thought that Mark is the person recorded in Mark 14 verse 52 where everyone's abandoning Jesus and we have this strange guy whose robe is taken away and he flees Jesus naked. It is thought that Mark was an eyewitness not only of the life of Jesus but of the death and resurrection of Jesus. Next we have Luke. Luke actually claims that he was not an eyewitness of Jesus. In Luke chapter 1 verses 1 to 4, Luke seeks to write an orderly account as he puts together and as he talks to people, those who knew about Jesus. It is also recorded in the book of Colossians in chapter 4 that Luke was a physician, and we see how even the Gospel of Luke highlights a lot of things that only a doctor would care about or even know about. Our final gospel is the Gospel of John. John was a disciple and an apostle of the Lord Jesus Christ. He's called the beloved disciple. He takes care of Jesus' mother after he dies. And John actually lived a long time. He lived much longer after Jesus resurrected and ascended into heaven. And he wrote 4 other books. Other than the Gospel of John, he wrote Revelation, he wrote 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all write about Jesus, but they're not identical because it would be pointless to give us 4 identical Gospels. They all add their flavor, they all bring their language, their background, and the culture that they came from. But the Gospels all declare the same truths about Jesus Christ. Specifically, why did Jesus come? Why did he bother to leave heaven, become a human, and die on the cross and be raised from the dead? And the Gospels are all unified in that reason of why Jesus Christ came. In Matthew 20 verse 28, in Mark 10 verse 45, it says that Jesus did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Jesus Christ didn't come to get praised. He came to die so that prisoners, people in sin, in the prison of sin, could be set free. Luke 22 verse 27 says that Jesus came to serve. And that service, of course, is him going to the cross, serving people by dying in their place. And John says in John 3:17 and John 12:47 that Jesus did not come to judge the world, but to save the world. All these eyewitnesses of Jesus Christ knew that he came to serve. He came to die on the cross. He came to save. Now, why would they all emphasize such a point? Because all people, you and me, we all have a big, serious sin problem. Our sin is the bad things that we do. Our sin is the things that God says that we shouldn't do and we do. And sin is the things that we don't do that God says we should do. Our sin offends God. Our sin puts us at odds with God. Our sin alienates us from God. This is why Jesus came. To deal with our sin. To die as a ransom. To serve and to save the world. Today, if you're exploring Jesus, look at what he did for you. And then look at all the times that you've offended God with your thoughts, attitudes, and actions. All humans are in a desperate need, and it's because we've rebelled against God. We've broken all of the 10 Commandments amongst the other commandments that God has given us. But that is why we need Christ. Thanks for watching, and God bless.